Dag, Arena Næstved. Så er vi ved at være klar. Det var da jo et dejligt billede, jeg har fået med mig selv her. Velkommen til, og det er super dejligt, at der er så mange, der alligevel trods vejret er nået frem. Jeg hedder Søren, og jeg kommer til de næste 45 minutter at snakke med John McFall sammen med jer faktisk. Fordi de næste 45 minutter, der har vi den her unikke chance for at lære John McFall at kende. Og John McFall, han er lige akkurat for lidt over et år siden blevet udnævnt som astronaut for ESA. Og John, han er her i dag for at fortælle om sin vej til at blive ESA-astronaut. Og han er faktisk også den første para-astronaut, hvilket vil sige, at han har et handicap. I kan komme til at stille spørgsmål undervejs. Og den måde, at man stiller spørgsmål på, det er sådan lidt old-fashioned, når det kommer til os her. Der kommer til at stå et telefonnummer oppe på skærmen på nogle af de der slides, og så sender man en sms til det, og så får jeg den sms. Og så er det sådan, vi gør det. Fordi at det her er 2024. Hvad hedder det? En sidste information, det er, at det her show, det kommer til at være på engelsk. John er fra England, så det vil sige, at vi kommer til at køre det her på engelsk. Men jeg tror også, at vi er ved at være der med de informationer, vi skal have nu. Så jeg synes, vi skal starte med at give en stor hånd til John McFall. Hej John.
Shall I go on that side?
Yeah, go to the side. Nice of you to join me.
Great to be here. Hi, everyone. Thank you for putting up with my English. My Danish is not very good, sorry.
Er du sikker? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So, if you guys leave here remembering one thing, I just want you to think about this word up here, opportunity, and this is what we're going to have a little discussion about now.
Yeah. John, let me just start by asking you one thing. You haven't always been an amputee. That's pretty clear from this image.
That's right. This is me probably about 10, 11 years old, something like that, but born with two legs. The right number of legs, I think. The normal number of legs, shall we say. And sport was always a huge thing for me. This is a picture of me at school, and I got to play sport 6 days a week and absolutely loved it. And it was the sound, especially running for me, it was the sound of the wind rushing past my ears under my own steam that I absolutely loved. And I was absolutely hooked by it. Football, rugby, tennis, hockey, but athletics as well. And one particular memory I have actually of when I was doing athletics at school, I had this great sports teacher. He was also our geography teacher, but every year we used to go to a national athletics competition. And I was successful enough to get selected to compete at the national championships. And we lived down, my school was down right in the south of England, and the championships were up in Birmingham, so it was a good sort of 3.5, 4-hour drive. And we must have been, nearly at the stadium, and I was 10 years old. And we got stuck in traffic, the most horrendous traffic. And we were all looking out watching it. My race is going to start. I was competing in the hurdles. We were still about a mile from the stadium. And so my coach said, my PE teacher said, right, McFall, get your spikes on. And he jumped out of the minibus.
Spikes?
Running spikes. So yeah, get your running spikes on. You know the ones with the metal studs on the bottom. He said, we've got to get to the stadium. So he jumped out, I jumped out with my running spikes on, and we ran a mile to the stadium. And I literally ran straight onto the track, picked up my bib, pinned it onto my vest, and ran my hurdles race, and won that heat and came second in the nationals. But yeah, so, I had a huge love of sport back then.
Yeah, John, you had a very eventful life. Let's just put it like that. And another event that was just here that I want you to notice is that the phone number was actually up here just a second ago. I don't know if you noticed it. So the number is here. Det er telefonnummeret 71 42 02 93. Og det kan I altså måske lige skrive ned på jeres telefon, så hvis I har et spørgsmål undervejs, så stil det spørgsmål, så bliver det samlet op af den søde dame, der sidder dernede i boksen. Hun hedder Christina, som så giver det videre op til mig. Sorry, John.
No, not at all.
Yeah, we were talking about you. Yeah. Okay, but as you said, you haven't always been an amputee. What was it like to grow up in,
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a military family, and I used to love those stories of adventure and challenge that my dad always used to tell me. And we would go hiking, we'd go camping, we'd go shooting, and all sorts of fun stuff. And that was kind of like my life growing up. So much so that I actually wanted to join the army myself. But before I joined the army, I wanted to get a bit of life experience. So I decided before I went to university, back in about 2000, I thought, well, I want to go traveling first. I want to grow up a bit. I want to see some of the world. And then I will go to university and then join the army after that. And it was when I went traveling, my life changed, really, and things really changed for me in a way I never could have imagined. I was on the island of Koh Samui in Thailand, and I was off sightseeing. And as you do in these places, you rent a motorcycle. And I was off seeing one of the sights, being a standard, typical 19-year-old boy riding a motorcycle too fast around a corner, and I lost control of the motorcycle. I crashed the motorbike and ended up really injuring my right leg. And I don't remember a huge amount other than being in an awful lot of pain and quite a lot of blood everywhere on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere on this island. And a friend I was with he flagged down a passing pickup truck, and they gratefully stopped, and they threw me into the back of this pickup truck and took me to the nearest hospital. Well, eventually I got transferred up to Bangkok when I was well enough. I was pretty sick. But the resulting injuries were so severe that I ended up having to have my leg amputated above the knee on the right-hand side.
Okay, so up here at this part of the leg.
Here, yeah. So I have the whole of my femur left. So they haven't actually cut any bone, but I have the whole of my thigh bone, and so I take all the weight on the end of that.
Okay, så hele knoglen der stadigvæk nedad. Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about how it felt? You had this whole life laid out for you, and then, then it suddenly disappears. I don't know how
overnight. I mean, I had this career in front of me that I had these aspirations of challenge and adventure, of joining the army and going exploring the world and challenging myself physically and emotionally. And then all of a sudden, that was taken away, and actually, it felt like this. It felt like I was falling off the edge of a cliff, completely out of control. And I was repatriated back to the UK, and I went to a hospital near London, and that's where I started my rehabilitation. And I remember really, really vividly one particular night in that hospital. And this is sort of where almost I had this epiphany. Does that directly translate into?
Åbenbaring, yeah.
This realization. I found myself in my hospital bed, absolutely sobbing, crying, uncontrollably, for no particular reason. It was just flowing out of me. It was the most bizarre emotional feeling. Now, I'm not a particularly artistic or creative person, but at that time, all I could think of doing was picking up a pen, and I had my photo album from my travels that I'd just been on my bedside table next to me, and I started writing on the back page of this photo album, and I wrote a poem, and I called that poem Opportunity. I won't read you the whole poem, but here are the last 4 lines. And as my tears dash this page, they are not of sadness, regret, despair, nor guilt, but madness. To have overlooked the fact that my heart is still beating, and from behind the doors for which I am now reaching, opportunity arises.
Yeah, so that's... I don't know where to start. I can't help thinking, it's a very traumatic experience, and then you write a poem like that it's a positive outlook.
Yeah, I guess I have to say that moment was really unconscious. You know, I didn't think I must get over this. I really must do something about it. It kind of came out very organically. But, you know, I realized that there was just way too much fun stuff to do in the world, right? You know, to sit there and feel sorry for myself.
I'm sure that we discussed the picture up in the left corner.
That's the one I like to call Full Moon Rising, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you cover it up?
Sorry.
Okay, so this next period, first of all, there's a lot of stuff there that I couldn't do. I can't stand on my hands, so I think it's almost like the disability has disappeared again.
Yeah, and it was, for me, it was not redefining myself. I don't want to redefine myself. It was getting that sense of identity back. Who was I? You know, I was initially self-conscious because I was an amputee, but I wanted to know who I was and really understand that. And I think I had to do that to move forward. And as I said earlier, sport was always a huge part of my life. And I knew at that stage that if I wanted to get some self-identity back, then sport and physical activity and challenging myself through sport and physical activity was probably going to be a really important vehicle in achieving that.
So that was your goal?
My goal was to get this guy back. My goal was to get that sense of freedom, that sound of the wind rushing past my ears again, under my own steam, you know, feeling rewarded by challenging myself physically. And by challenging myself physically, it was also challenging myself emotionally.
Yeah. Okay, so you're very open about all these experiences. And there's one question that has already come through on the text, and that is, why are you wearing shorts today?
The easy answer is I'm British.
Okay, so you're used to the cold weather.
It's funny, actually, since wearing shorts, the number of people who say, I didn't realize it was a British thing living in Britain, but I've now been living in continental Europe for 6 months, wearing shorts all the time. And since it's got cold, people have gone, oh, you're so British. But no, so I actually, when I went to this school that this picture was taken at, my school uniform from the age of 7 was shorts all year round. And long socks to keep the legs warm in the winter, and ankle socks in the summer. And so I always kind of wore shorts. But interestingly, there is a bit more to that story. When I went to university first in 2001, after I had my accident, I was a brand new, shiny, out-of-the-box amputee, bit self-conscious. And I remember I wore long pants for a period of time when I was starting at university, and I'm meeting all these people, and you're going to classes, and I'm walking up the steps. And at that time, I couldn't walk up stairs foot over foot. I could only kind of walk one foot up and bring the next one up to meet it. And the number of people who would say, oh, mate, is your leg all right? And I'm like, well, you know, I'm an amputee. And they're like, oh, mate, I'm really sorry. So actually, socially, it became a bit of a tool to just say, listen, you don't have to worry about feeling bad or asking me if I've got a limp. It's there. And I was back to wearing shorts again all the time anyway. When I started at university, I felt I had to wear trousers for some reason, or long pants for some reason, to hide it, even though I wore shorts all the time before. And I thought, sod it, you know what, I'll just be me. So yes, great question, whoever that was.
Cool, but you actually made something like this happen again. You got into running again.
It was, for me, of all the sports, running was that vehicle of reward. You know, I felt a lot of reward and satisfaction from running again. And it turns out I was, you know, when I was a kid, I probably didn't realize what potential I had. And then I took up running, I didn't take up running. I started running again as an amputee. I taught myself to run. And it turns out I wasn't too bad at running, and it took me on the most amazing journey. In about 2004, I became a full-time athlete as a sprinter. And then in about 2007, so the Paralympic Games were coming up in 2008, which I was targeting, and I got selected to compete at the Beijing 2008 Paralympic Games. But it took me on this amazing journey of doing things like this, where, the British Olympic and Paralympic kit was announced, and we had to stand in front of the press in the window of the Adidas store on Oxford Street in London, as mannequins demonstrating this kit, meeting some great fellow athletes.
You're not. This is not mannequins.
No, this is me. This
Okay,
is
I
us,
thought
yeah.
it was a wax figure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So you may know some of them. I don't know. They're very famous. So the guy on the far right is Bradley Wiggins, who's a Tour de France winner, cyclist. You got Victoria Pendleton, track cyclist. Tom Daley, who's a very famous British highboard diver. And then there's little old me there like that. But anyway, I was a terrible competitor. I used to get horrendous performance anxiety. But my journey took me to the Paralympic Games in Beijing. And it was the most tremendous opportunity, which resulted in me winning a bronze medal in the 100 meters for guys who are amputees. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we thought that this was about you being an astronaut, but we have to go through a little bit of his life path. It's pretty long.
But for me, this was, it's bronze medal. It's a piece of hardware, right, that I get to take home with me and show people, which is great. But for me, it was less about that medal. It was more about the 8 years that it had taken me to get there, and what I had learned in those 8 years to get me there. It taught me some really, really valuable lessons about myself, which I really wish my younger self knew.
Yeah, I think we all feel like that at times, but you have a lot of success as a runner, even though you say you're a horrible competitor. But you have a lot of success. How did that affect you mentally?
I didn't think of the hardware, the medals and things like that as particularly important. It was very much about growing as a person, that actually, if I put the work in, look what I can get out of life. And that was such a massive lesson for me on this journey.
Yeah, and there's a question here from the audience. Someone wants to know if it isn't cheating to use these blades. They seem like being a lot of fun.
That's a really, really good question, and it depends how you frame it. So I would only compete against other amputees of the same level as myself, and we're all using equivalent technology. Now, you could have the Formula One argument or the elite cycling argument, where it depends how good your engineers are, and there will be margins in different products, but there are really only two companies globally making the running blades that we use. So it was a relatively level playing field amongst amputees. The very interesting side of that question is, okay, well, what about if you take a double amputee and race against someone who's able-bodied? I can talk for hours on that, but should that be allowed? But that's for another time. I have my own opinions on that.
Okay, cool. How many legs do you have? Because you don't wear the blade today, so you must have at least two.
Yeah, so I have
three.
Yeah, I have a 3. Yeah,
sorry.
I did have 2. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I have. So generally, at the moment, I have this leg. I have a running leg, and I have another leg I use for my mountain biking and cycling and stuff. I have another piece of hardware that I use for diving in the water as well.
Okay, so running is not enough. You have other sports as well.
So the things that I love doing, running and mountain biking, are my fun things to do.
Cool. Okay, so you had all these opportunities at this point.
Opportunities.
Yeah, and then another arises at, your life presents a lot of opportunities here.
So I knew that I couldn't be an athlete forever, and I had to probably get a proper job. And I thought, well, what was it that I would have liked to have done when I was 15, 16 if it wasn't joining the army? And I've always been hugely curious and excited by science and technology. And I thought, well, if I didn't want to join the army back when I was 15, 16, then I probably would have quite liked to have studied medicine. So at the age of 28, I actually went back to university and studied medicine. But alongside that, I also met my beautiful wife, who's in the top left of that picture, who was also an Olympic athlete, Olympic gymnast, had a family, and all this going alongside whilst I was studying medicine. But I chose medicine because I love science, and I'm incredibly curious and wanted to explore that, because I wanted to get up out of bed every day to do something that interested me. You know, I didn't want work to feel like work. And my journey through medicine has been so interesting, very challenging at times, but ultimately, if you strip it back, I'm so passionate about medicine and everything I've learned in medicine that it doesn't feel like work to me.
What's your special field?
So I trained as a trauma and orthopedic surgeon, ironically.
So you would be able to perform an autopsy, like
and ironically, I have performed amputations as a surgeon as well.
Autopsy, amputation. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's another field.
So trauma and orthopedics is my background.
Sorry. Moving right on. Yeah. At some point during your life, there's Isa has a question for you.
Yeah, I was working in one of the hospitals, and one of my colleagues sent me a text message. He said, "John, mate, they're looking for Paralympians to go to space." I was like, "What? That just sounds. Are they that fed up of people with disabilities?" They're like. And so I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The European Space Agency are looking at this thing." And I thought, wow. And it turns out the European Space Agency had put out a vacancy notice. There was a new round of astronaut selection that opened in 2021 to recruit a new class of astronauts. And alongside that, for the very first time in any space agency, the European Space Agency was also looking for an astronaut with a physical disability.
Was that a child's dream? Because many other astronauts will say that they knew about it in school, they saw the Apollo missions and stuff like that. What about you?
I got a slight confession that I'd never dreamt of being an astronaut, which is always a bit embarrassing to say when the journalists will go, "Oh, what was it like, your childhood dream?" It's like, well, my childhood dream was to fulfill my curiosities, right? To explore and challenge myself. And, what better way to do that than seize an opportunity like this?
Yeah. There's a question from the audience. Now, here's the class of new recruited astronauts. But which of the prior astronauts are your favorites, or the one you look up to?
Yeah, I think they're all awesome. And they've all... Do you know what I really like about it? Is that they all bring their own individual personalities and skills and experiences to the table. And that's what's really important about the world of human space exploration, is these individuals complement each other.
Yeah. My favorite is Don Pettit. He's super cool. Yeah.
But
Glad you asked.
Do you think I was sitting on the fence enough on that answer not to commit?
These guys are selected from a lot of people. Was it around 10,000 applicants?
So it was 22,500 applicants. Although, because of the nature of the vacancy notice for the feasibility study or the Power Astronaut applicants, there was obviously far fewer applications from my side of things, but exactly the same application and selection process.
Okay, how was it? Could you give an example of, what kind of test did you go through?
Well, I'll give you an example of one. So, and you guys can play along with this.
Is this cheating if there's another selection process?
No, because it's openly out there in people like Tim Peake's book and stuff. So it's okay. But right, so I want you to imagine you've got a cube. Right? You're looking at a three-dimensional drawing of a cube, and on that cube, on one of the faces, let's say on the front face of that cube, is a red cross. Okay. With a verbal instruction, the cube is going to be rotated on an edge, okay? And there's only 4 instructions that you can have. It's either forward, back, left, or right, okay? So I want you to picture that cube in your head with the cross on the front, and then you get a set of audio instructions, and it tells you where the cube's going, and you have to say where the red cross finishes. Okay, so which side the red cross finishes on. So it starts off relatively easy, but by the time you get through towards the end of the test, it goes something like forward, forward, left, left, back, left, right, forward, back.
You can begin by answering. I'll take.
I made that sequence up only so I don't have to work out where the cross went. But you can imagine the concentration that it takes to do that, and so those are some of the things they were testing, among things like concentration, hand-eye coordination, or what we call psychomotor skills, so kind of brain and spatial awareness coordination, that sort of thing.
Okay, so why did ESA? Why are they looking into finding astronauts with disabilities?
I think. This was the brainchild of the director of human and robotic exploration at the time, and they were like, "Can we not? We know we've done human space flight. We know we can fly humans. Okay, can we not fly a wider range of humans? Because we know that by opening up selection to a wider range of people, people are going to come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and with them, they will bring their knowledge, expertise, experience, but also personalities and life experience with them, and that can only be a good thing to enrich the industry and the world of human space exploration, but change people's perceptions generally of what people from minority groups, like having a disability, are capable of doing. And so I think it was a really bold and brave move of the European Space Agency to say, listen, it's not easy to go out and say, listen, we are intending to send someone with a physical disability on a long duration mission to the International Space Station. We are going to see if that works. And I think that's pretty brave. And hopefully it will set a precedent for space agencies around the world, but not just space agencies, other employers where, people are forced to think about, can we include more people? Because it's not just about their disability. Actually, their experiences can enrich a whole range of programs and jobs, and if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And actually one in the audience wants to know, and that is a great segue to the next slide, if it will pose a problem for you to only have one leg, or actually do you bring both legs on the space station?
It's a question I get asked. I get asked quite a lot. Do you need legs in space? right? And it's a really interesting question, because I sat there and went, do I need legs in space? But it's not until actually you start unpicking the whole thing and trying to understand it that actually you come up with the answers. So the answer is there will be some things that would require you to, in my case as an amputee, to have legs. So, for example, I have to be able to, in an emergency, exit the spacecraft on the launch pad if there is an emergency, which requires me to get out of the spacecraft, move very quickly down the crew access arm, into a gondola, down a zip line, into the back of an armored vehicle and drive away from the launch site. So this is in 1G. So it's a long way to hop, you know. Yep. Sorry, I'll be with you guys. I'm coming. So, and when you break it down, especially in 1G, when you break it down, actually it looks like a lot of the emergency procedures are really the boundary indications for what the current regulations and requirements are. You know, if you consider someone who maybe has a spinal cord injury, who is a wheelchair user, at the moment, the setup for emergency egress procedures on the launch pad are not there for someone with that disability. So this is what I hope that this will do. This is, you know, I can't change the world, but what we can do is we can open people's eyes and start thinking about, okay, well, if we're looking at a wider population, we need to make it more accessible at the design phase. And this is a very small stepping stone in what I hope will be a much, much bigger journey.
Yeah, the space industry is famous for being an incubator for new technology. And I guess this could also make new technologies for disabled people on Earth.
Yeah, and not just new technologies through innovation. And innovation doesn't just mean new hardware and new technological solutions. It's innovation in systems, you know, and how you actually do something rather than necessarily the technology or the hardware itself.
Will you be bringing the blade on the station for when you're running on the treadmill?
Great question, because that kind of brings me onto the other bit of this. So, do you need legs in space? So, on a long duration mission, it's a requirement to maintain bone density, cardiovascular health, muscle mass. Now, I run in 1G on Earth. There is a treadmill on the International Space Station. There is an exercise bike on the International Space Station. And there is a weightlifting machine on the International Space Station, all of which I will be required to use if I am going to maintain I'm going to undertake what we call countermeasures to maintain my bone density, my muscle mass, and my cardiovascular health. So again, important to be able to use a prosthesis and use my legs in space. But as for the other stuff, as for floating around the capsules and going about day-to-day tasks, I don't know. And it may be that actually having a terminal device, like the prosthesis, is useful for anchoring myself or stabilizing myself whilst I'm trying to do tasks with my hands. But that will form part of the research that we do if I do go to space.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of technology that could arise from this, actually, and a lot of opportunities again. So with everything, the space station is one big science project, and I guess you are as well.
Yeah. And the veritable guinea pig, yeah, as we say, that we call someone who is always exposed to being tested a guinea pig in English, but I am a guinea pig.
There's a question from the audience about your leg.
Yeah, for sure.
What material is it made of? Because there's different kind of materials here.
Yeah, so this piece up here, so this is the piece that the rest of my leg is in, what remains of my leg is in, that what you can see, the black stuff is a carbon fiber shell that's impregnated with resin. It's layers of carbon fiber The rest is some carbon fiber and a mix of other alloys, depending on what purpose the particular piece of equipment or piece of hardware is needed to do.
Is it heavy?
The whole leg probably weighs about just over 4 kilos.
Is that more or less than a normal
It's
leg?
it's probably a little bit less than, but you've got to take into account I've lost a lot of muscle bulk up here on this side. So overall on this side, I'm probably lighter. So the limb itself is probably less than what I've lost, if that makes sense.
So if someone gets your head, your leg thrown in their head at some point in weightlessness, will it hurt as much as a normal leg?
That's a good question, isn't it? I guess it depends with what speed it's thrown at in microgravity. If some of the other astronauts annoy me, I will let you know how that goes.
Of course. Send pictures, Instagram. Okay, what are we looking at here?
So one of the ways in which we can learn more in preparation for going to space is by exposing ourselves to microgravity in this environment. So this is a zero-G flight, or the Vomit Comet. And I had the opportunity to do this in April last year, and we've got another opportunity to fly. I'm flying again in April this year.
I'm free.
Do you fare well on parabolic flights?
Well,
I'm sure there's a story there somewhere.
Yeah. We can take that over a beer.
So this is a really useful way of testing out things before we go. So actually, hopefully in November this year, we're going to get a treadmill on the parabolic flight, and I'm going to run on the treadmill in microgravity. So you get about 22 seconds per parabola, and we'll do 30 of them or so, as well as some other tests.
Okay, so you need to be ready, standing up during the hard phase?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How much fun is it? It looks kind of fun. It's a question from the audience.
It is fun, and it's really difficult when you're doing things for science.
Yes, it's for science.
You can't help but feel a little bit guilty when you're having so much fun doing stuff for science. This flight was very much a familiarization flight to get an idea of what it would be like, and it's a cross between free falling, because essentially you are free falling when you're parachuting, and mixed with floating in water, but without any of the sensory stuff so the sensation of the water on your skin or the wind, friction on you. So it's really weird. You get that body position and kind of not really able to do much, but without all the noise and stuff. But it's very interesting.
Did you scream?
No, I didn't scream. No, I was very responsible.
Okay.
Because it was in the name of science.
Yeah. There's one story where some co-host at this event, me, was at a similar event like this, at the same plane, and I screamed like a little kid.
Which would have been okay if one of the experiments on board wasn't a sleep study, just to add context to that.
And they have actually told us before, you need to stay quiet. And I was, wah! Yeah, it was hopeless. So yeah, maybe it's good it's you that's becoming the astronaut.
Yeah.
Okay, we're about to run out of time. We still have time for some questions from the audience. Yeah, but in the end here, is there some kind of advice that you could give or pass on to others who have similar ambitions, or just in life, generally?
Yeah, I mean, so there's something that really sticks with me, and I have lived by this for quite some time now, and it was something I learned or came across the Christmas after I had my accident, and I was sat at home with my family, and it was the first Christmas. I'd been home a couple of months, a new amputee, still probably quite emotional, finding stuff difficult. And my parents found it difficult because they knew the kind of character I was. They knew the life I wanted to lead and the challenges I wanted to embark on, and the juice I wanted to squeeze out of life, for want of a better way to put it. And they could see that now I was this person with a physical disability, and they worried that I would not be able to reach those expectations that I had for myself. And they gave me this present on Christmas Day, and it was a big present. Everybody likes a big Christmas present. And it was a really heavy Christmas present as well, which is even better. I ripped the paper off it, and it was an atlas of Earth. It was the Times Atlas of Earth, this big A3 thing. And I used to love looking at maps. And that's, I used to love traveling. And I opened up the front page of this, and inscribed on the front page, my dad had written something that I will never, ever forget. Always go the extra mile. Life will reward you.
Thank you, John. There's a lot of questions. We have some time. We have planned time, 3 minutes, but maybe we'll go just a bit above, if that's okay with you.
I'm happy. So as time allows, I'm happy to answer any questions.
The first one is, what time zone are we in space?
I don't want to sound smug, but it is Greenwich Mean Time. On the International Space Station, because it is the center of time. No, although it is the center of time on Earth, it has a slightly more practical reason, because actually when everyone is working at the Johnson Space Center, the time difference between GMT and Houston works quite well. It's manageable for the shifts that they do. So
yeah. Okay. What are your? Do you know what the plans are for your future mission? Do you go to the station, or do you go to the moon? What are the plans?
The aim of the feasibility study. So one of the main assumptions that we have made in doing the feasibility study is that I will fly to the ISS for a 6-month, or what we call a long duration mission, and the feasibility study is aimed to take a business case to the member states of the European Space Agency and say, listen, we have looked into this, it's been successful, and we can't see any reason why someone like John, or John with his disability, could not fly. And then hopefully that will then give the member states and ESA the opportunity to say, okay, well, let's now find a flight. So we're probably not looking at a time before 2027 for me to fly.
Yeah, there's also a question here from the audience. They want to know, do you retire as an astronaut, or do you return to be a surgeon?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but practically speaking, it depends what happens. If I fly in 2027, I'll be 46. I would have been out of medicine for 5 years. Then there will be the stuff that comes after flying. I think 7 or 8 years out of working as a surgeon might be difficult to get back into developing what a consultant is the top of the medical tree in the UK. It might be difficult to develop a consultant practice at that stage. But if that is the case, I am pretty sure that I would find something that interests me in, the world of human space exploration. Hopefully being sent to the moon. I'd find that quite interesting.
Yep, me too. I'm free. Okay,
no screaming.
Can't promise anything. Apparently, there's someone in the audience who wants to know. I think it's a twofold question. Do you feel pain in the leg that's not there? Phantom pain?
Yeah, I do. So you can there's a spectrum of phantom pain. There are phantom sensations. So like for example now, I'm wiggling my toes that I haven't got. I get the sensation that I'm wiggling my toes. Obviously, they're not moving.
I just checked. I'm sorry.
But I also get phantom pain as well occasionally. But it's often very, very quick and sharp pain, and then it disappears.
Okay. Are there any study that suggests that there could be some effect from the zero-G environment on the space station?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's certainly something that will be interesting to document. I mean, stress has I know that on Earth, stress has an impact on it. When I am very tired, but chronically tired, I tend to get more episodes of phantom pain, which would suggest that it has a relationship with part of your nervous system called your parasympathetic nervous system, which is you've got your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous systems, and they're basically what keeps your body running without you thinking about it. So there's thought to be a parasympathetic involvement in it.
Okay, and now we are officially running out of time. So I'd like to thank you, John. It's been such a pleasure to have you here. It's a really interesting story you have to tell. And I'd like the audience also to applaud you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Og til sidst her, inden jeg stikker af fra scenen her igen, hvis man har lyst til en autograf for John McFall, så kan man, you're signing.
I have some cards that I can sign if people feel they desperately want to pitch me. I'm more than happy to sign.
Cool, I want one.
Okay.
Yeah, just one. Okay, and, og så, altså, der kommer til at være en lille pause nu her, hvor at vi kommer til at vente på, at det helt store program starter. Og det er jo her, hvor at vi har blandt andet en masse spændende foredrag, men også det her utrolig spændende in-flight call med Andreas Mogensen. Så tusind tak, fordi I er kommet, og tak, fordi vi måtte komme her og snakke med jer.